Okay, Chair Garcia, we're live. Fantastic. Thank you so much. Let's go ahead and call the meeting to order. Director Wheeler, can we get a roll call, please?
Certainly, Councilor Garcia. Councilor Romero Worth. I'm here. Councilor Amanda Chavez.
Here.
Councilor Lee Garcia.
He is excused.
Councilor Rivera. Chair Rivera.
He is excused as well.
And Councilor Michael Garcia.
Present.
You have a quorum.
Thank you, Director Wheeler. Next up, approval of the agenda. Do we have any changes from staff?
No changes from staff, Mr. Chair.
Okay, how about any changes from members? If none,
Move to approve. Second.
a motion to approve in a second. We do this in favor of a roll call vote.
Councilor Romero Worth.
Yes.
Councilor Amanda Chavez.
Yes.
Councilor Michael Garcia.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Next up is approval of the consent agenda. Director Wheeler, what items were pulled from committee members?
Chair Garcia, I believe items B, C, and E were removed from consent, and that is B and C by yourself and E by Councilor Romero Worth.
Okay, thank you.
Move to approve as amended. Second.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, may I get a roll call vote, please?
Councilor Romero Worth,
Yes.
Councilor Amanda Chavez, Councilor Michael Garcia.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, first up on the consent is item B. Request for approval of professional services contract with HDR Engineering Inc. for engineering services to complete the design of replacement ultraviolet disinfection facilities for the Paseo Real wastewater reclamation facility in the amount of $373,757.50, including NMGRT through June 30th, 2025. Do we have staff here for this?
Staff is on Zoom, and I wonder, Ben, could you put the Zoom on the screen so that the counselors can see the staff? Thank you. We're seeing the council chambers, but not the Zoom yet.
Can you hear me?
Oh, there you are. There's Fred. There's your staff. Councilor Michael Garcia.
Thank you, Fred. First, why don't, if we could just have you give a overview of what this is, given that this contract is dealing with something that has been in the public realm recently, and I think for you to give an update would be beneficial for public consumption.
Yes, this is a contract with a consulting engineer to do the design, prepare drawings, as well as specifications for the construction of replacement facilities at Paseo Real.
Okay. Thank you, Fred. Appreciate that. Before I move on, did any counselors have any questions or?
Move to approve. Second.
With that being said, I do got a couple questions, Fred.
Sure.
Given the challenges we've had recently with our wastewater treatment plant, how sustainable will this design be, given we've been told this plant might need a complete overhaul, and is this design taking that into consideration?
What we're looking to do is put in a system that'll be robust and dependable. And there's been significant advances in technology of this equipment over the past 25 years since the initial system was installed. And I don't know if you're aware, but the manufacturer doesn't even support this particular UV system anymore. So it's well past its usable life, and it's time to replace. We're not replacing with an eye towards a different plant down the road. We're replacing it with what we need to meet our requirements.
Okay, thank you, Fred. I appreciate that. Director Dupuis, since you're in the room now with us, I got a quick question. Sounded like from Fred that we're not this is not long-term planning. This is more so to get us up to speed now. Is their plan for long-term given? I think that's where, at least from my opinion, we need to be heading in regards to the treatment plant. So can you maybe give us an update in regards to what the plans are?
Sure, Councilor Garcia. The current master plan project is underway, which has been awarded to Corolla Engineers. And that will take into consideration how to incorporate any expenditure that would be put into this UV system into a bigger picture solution, even if it does entail a complete rebuild of the facility.
So if I'm understanding, does this design takes into consideration building a new facility?
The design that's currently being contemplated is for the UV specifically. And what I'm saying is that if we did a solution through the master plan that identifies the need for a complete rebuild and the implementation of that the recent investments will be utilized to their utmost because of the significant investment. So it could simply mean that we relocate equipment. It could mean that somehow it's tied in to the new infrastructure. But ultimately, I have confidence that we'd likely maintain UV as our disinfection process long-term. And so I feel that this is a very meaningful investment, even given the current status of the plant and potential range of options for a long-term fix for the facility as a whole.
Okay. And given that this request is solely for the design, do we have any estimation in regards to what the equipment that will be required through this design will cost?
I don't know numbers off the top of my head. I'd defer to Paul if you have any relevant information.
At this time, we haven't even made any equipment selections. So all we have are rough budget numbers. I would say budget wise, we're probably looking at $7.5 million for construction.
Okay, thank you, Fred. I must say I'm a bit concerned that we're looking to invest nearly $8 million for something that might not be a long-term solution. And so I think that's a question we need to be asking ourselves. Is this a worthy investment, or would the $8 million be more suitable towards a brand new treatment plant? And what would a brand new treatment plant cost us if we were to look into that through a full overhaul?
Councilor Rivera, the cost for a brand new facility ranges widely dependent upon the capacity that we would target. And ultimately, there are a few options to address that. Significant cost relative to the capacity we currently anticipate into the future, given the significant investment that has been done in Santa Fe to reduce consumption, which has ultimately reduced the amount of influent we receive at the plant. So it's a 13 MGD plant that sees rarely more than half that. And that has to be taken into consideration, but it's 90+ million for a complete facility.
Okay.
Just to give you a general rule of thumb idea, that's the starting point.
Okay, thank you, Director Dupuy. I appreciate that. And I guess last question is, given that this is for the design and it's not going to have an immediate impact on the challenges we're seeing with the wastewater plant, what would be the outcome if we didn't approve this request?
My anticipated expectation on what would occur is that it would delay any implementation of UV improvements that help solve our disinfection requirements. So it's a long lead fix. The estimated time through completion is 2.5 years. So obviously it wouldn't have any effect between now and then beyond extending when that long-term solution could be implemented.
Thank you, Director. I appreciate that feedback. No other questions for me. How about any of my colleagues?
Mr. Chair. Counselor Dupuy, I just promoted you, or maybe demoted you. So what you're trying to do is fix our current problems in the short term, correct?
Correct.
No, man, this is a long-term fix. This is
Right.
the ultimate fix for the facility.
Right, but the facility we acknowledge may need other solutions. Is that correct?
I don't believe there are any fatal faults in the facility. No, ma'am.
Okay, then why are we doing a master plan?
We do a master plan every 5 years.
Okay, and what are the objectives of the master plan?
It's to project the necessary capital improvements at the facility in the upcoming windows going out both 5 and 20 years. And it also projects the growth of the system so that we can project our future needs.
Okay, and so this contract that we're proving tonight will help with the problems we're having currently, but will also help us as we will help with the facility, as you said, long-term, and be part of anything we end up having to do with a 5-year or 20-year review of what needs to be done.
This was identified in a previous master plan as necessary, and we've just been lagging and executing what should have been done. As I said earlier, this UV equipment that we have right now isn't even supported by the manufacturer any longer. We can't get parts from the manufacturer. We have to buy parts on the secondary market. So it's well overdue. That's why we're asking to proceed with the project.
Okay, so this this has to do with a past master plan, something that was identified that needs to be done to the facility, but is this have to do with our current issues with meeting our effluent standards?
The old equipment is definitely a factor in our struggles. Yes, ma'am. But it's not the only cause. No, ma'am. But
Okay.
it's one of the problems. Yes.
So even if we weren't having the troubles that we were having with the effluent, we would still be doing this because this was identified as part of a previous master plan.
Yes, ma'am. When we started down this path, it was, well, for myself, it was 9 months ago when we first put out the RFP for this project.
Okay. Okay, so this isn't something we're doing because of I mean, it's not a fix. It is a fix, but it's not this is part of a long-term strategy for the things that the facility needs, and it will also help us with the things we're currently experiencing.
Yes, it's not a knee-jerk reaction to what we're seeing now.
Okay,
It's something that the facility has needed for multiple years.
okay, that's very helpful. And I appreciate knowing about the fact that we do these master plans on regular cycles, because I thought that was something we were doing anew. So this is good. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Sure, absolutely. Counselor. Any other comments or questions? Or Counselor Chavez?
Thank you. I want some clarity because the last presentation we had on this, it sounded like there were quite a few things that needed to be fixed or updated. And I feel like I'm hearing something a little bit different from the engineer right now. So I'm confused because in fact, it would be good to know if we're kind of piecemealing a solution and fixing all these little things when ultimately there needs to be a bigger project that's going to come forward. Then I see like the concerns around spending, right? If we're going to invest in putting pieces together along the way when ultimately we're like, oh, well, we should have just invested in a better more efficient facility, I think that's when concerns about money is something that we really need to consider. But I'm also just thrown off here because originally, based on what we were presented with, it sounded like, I think the way I put it was like we were putting Band-Aids. It sounded like we were putting Band-Aids along the way as things were breaking. That's correct, right? That's what we heard in a previous presentation.
Mr. Chair, Councilor Chavez.
This project here is not a Band-Aid, ma'am.
Now, I understand that, but there was a question that asked. The concern here is that we were presented with information saying there were a lot of concerns around this facility. We had staff that were actively on the ground saying how difficult it was to maintain basically quality work because they were putting out fires. And I have an issue with that because that's when we have things that occur that interfere with our community and how it functions. But then what we were hearing now is that may not be the case, that everything seems to be as it is in a sense. So I just want clarity with that.
Thank you. So in terms of clarifying the distinction between the difficulties with the facility today as they exist versus the need of the improvements for the UV, the need of the improvements for the UV are a part of what needs to be fixed at the facility. And the recent effort that we've obtained through a emergency procurement support from Corolla engineers to specifically identify the root causes of what was causing problems with our exceedances today, identified the ineffectiveness of the UV as the primary cause. There are some additional complicating causes or compounding causes that fixed alone don't necessarily provide a robust solution. And so the current project happens to address, as was identified through the questions from Councilor Romero Worth, both issues.
So, and I think this is important. I think any long-term solutions are very important. I understand though this wasn't initiated by what's currently occurring. This was initiated by a master plan. I would love to know when that was dated. I think that would be good public information to know when were those steps of what should have been addressed, communicated, or how were they communicated? Because we're in a situation now, but this isn't a response to that. This is a response to a recommendation from a master plan. And I understand that part. I think that what the concern is with the community, and I won't speak for my colleagues, but for me is when we were originally given the presentation and there were, like I said, this idea that we were, having to fix things along the way because there were things that needed to be addressed. If the master plan keeps bringing up these pieces that need to be fixed or updated or replaced, ultimately, what would that add up to? I think that's kind of the concern that I'm hearing is, would it justify considerations of a new facility? And I know that'll really come in the master plan. But I just think I would want staff to understand that's where the concern kind of rests. I also, now that I hear that this was actually a recommendation from a previous master plan, was that 5 years ago?
Paul, do you happen to know the timeline of the prior master plan?
I believe it was. We also have some studies that were done by Corolla presenting options, equipment options.
Do you know that when the prior master plan was complete?
The last one was done in 2016.
And I think that's just what the concern comes down to. We have a situation that's very public right now. And now we're like, this to me, it seems like there could have been some prevention if we responded to a master plan. We need to have action with the processes that we have in place. So if we have things like 5-year master plans or if we have things that are occurring to provide us information to guide us to take next steps, those are preventative steps that'll help our city run more efficiently. I just wanted to comment on that. I think that caught me a little off guard right now, and I know everything takes a while, but now we're in a situation that we could have potentially not have been in if we responded to a process we've had set for a reason. It's a little frustrating. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Any other counselors? I guess one last question, clarification maybe for Paul. Given that this recommendation is coming from a master plan that is 7 years old, and it was stated that we conduct these master plans every 5 years, is there a newer master plan than 2016? And so I guess that's for staff. I don't know.
We've begun that process now. We have a contract with Corollo to do the master plan. We've had some initial meetings, working on that master plan. We're going through a data collection phase at this point. So we're proceeding with that. But there was not a master plan produced between 2016 and this one that we're working on now that I'm aware of. I believe it was delayed because of COVID, but I got here on the tail end of that time. I've been here about 1.5 years. So I'm not sure what happened to the planning prior to my arrival.
Okay, thank you, Fred. I appreciate the clarification. No other questions on my behalf. There's none from the counselors. Oh, Counselor Chaps.
I just want to say that I know that you are both new, and I just want to acknowledge that you're walking into a situation. But I do think it's important that our community hears that we acknowledge that there's hiccups in our systems, like when we have process in place to assess situations and then we don't follow through appropriately. I think it's important that as leadership here, new leadership, thank you for being here, that we acknowledge that's an issue and that we need to improve that system. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. If there's no other questions, Director Wheeler, can we get a roll call vote, please?
Counselor Romero Worth, Counselor Amanda Chavez,
Yes.
Counselor Michael Garcia,
Yes,
motion passes.
thank you so much. Next on the agenda is item C, request for approval of amendment number 2 with John Shoemaker and Associates, ASI, to original contract number 21-0544 to provide water rights and hydraulic technical services for the City of Santa Fe Water Division for fiscal year 2024.
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay. I just had one quick question for staff, and that is, given that this is the second amendment, this was originally approved back in 2021. Is there a plan to reissue an RFP for this, or are we just going to go year by year and potentially address it through amendment process?
Is this on?
Yes.
Yes, Counselor. Chair Garcia, members of the committee. This contract's a 4-year contract. It was procured through a cooperative procurement. And the intention would be to repeat through the consecutive years and then do an RFP in 2025 when it's expired.
Okay. Clear enough. That was all my questions. Any other questions from staff sorry, any committee members? Hearing none, Director Wheeler, can we get a roll call vote, please?
Counselor Romero Worth,
Yes.
Counselor Amanda Chavez, and Counselor Michael Garcia,
Yes.
motion passes.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Next item is item E, consideration of a bill number 2023-15, adoption of ordinance number 2023, yet to be named. Sponsors Mayor Weber, Councilor Lindell, Councilor Romero Worth, the bill amending SFCC 1987 2-4.6 to increase the city manager's non-pandemic contract approval authority to $200,000, amending section 11-13 to strike language regarding contract authority and amending section 20-1.4 to by removing the city manager's pandemic specific authority. Councilor Romero Worth, you remove this item.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So just to start off, I am not a sponsor of this bill. That has been incorrectly noted and has also been corrected. So the sponsors of this bill are Councilor Lindell and the mayor. I pulled this item tonight to present two amendments that are being sponsored by Councilors Cassett, Rivera, and myself. And if you refresh the packet, you should have both amendments and I believe a red line, although I'm not seeing the red line, so I may need to refresh. But I guess the first thing I'd like to do is move to approve the bill so that we can consider the amendments.
Second.
And the first amendment, Amendment A, makes the changes necessary to phase in a change in the city manager's authority. So the phase in would work as this fiscal year, which has started July 1st, the city manager's authority would move to $150,000. So he would be able to sign contracts for $150,000 and less. And then in FY, I believe it's 24, which begins July 1st, 2024, the CM's authority would move to 200,000. And that's all this First Amendment does. And I would move passage of the amendment.
Second.
We got a motion and a second for the amendment proposed. Any discussion from folks? I do got a quick question. Given that the title of the bill has $200,000 listed, does this amendment need to be? Does the title of the bill need to be changed by any means?
I believe the title is being changed and it will also delay the final passage of this because it has to be renoticed. It's my understanding from the city attorney's office.
Okay, thank you, Counselor. That's all the questions I had. Any other questions? Okay, with that being said, roll call vote, please, Director Wheeler.
Councilor Romero Worth,
Yes.
Councilor Amanda Chavez,
Yes.
Councilor Michael Garcia,
I'll abstain.
motion passes.
Okay. The floor is still yours, Councilor Romero Worth.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the Second Amendment provides the changes necessary to require that the city manager on a monthly basis publish the list of contracts that are signed by him, given the signature or delegated authority that we are providing in the First Amendment. So this year, any contract 150,000 or below would have to be provided to the governing body and then also published on the city's website within 10 business days of the end of each month. And it would require that the list include the contract party's name, the value of the contract, the duration of the contract, and the contract purpose. And it also provides that the city manager's designee could help facilitate in compiling and publishing the list. So next fiscal year, because the contract authority would go up to 200,000, the list would include all things signed by the city manager at 200,000 or below. That's what this does. And I move to approve.
Second.
We got a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. Director Wheeler, can we get a vote on the amendment?
Councilor Romero Worth,
Yes.
Councilor Amanda Chavez, and Councilor Michael Garcia.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, Chairman, Councilor Romero Worth, the floor is still yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. That's all I have tonight.
Okay. Any other questions or comments from committee members? Hearing or seeing none, can I get a vote, the final amended bill?
Counselor Romero Worth,
Yes.
Counselor Amanda Chavez,
Yes.
and Counselor Michael Garcia.
Will abstain at the moment.
Motion passes.
Thank you so much. With that, we will go ahead and move on to the next item on the agenda, which is matters from staff. Director Wheeler.
Thank you, Chair Garcia. I guess I could give an update on the West Alameda culvert replacement project. The construction phase has begun. The construction contractors on site. The utility work is really complete. We had most of it done before the contractor got on site, but they did the last piece last week. It was very successful. It was relocation of a giant fiber line. And now we will be framing up for the foundation and the wing walls and the header walls of the culvert. And so things are moving along well. We're hoping to take advantage of this time before the monsoons start to get the framing done and the concrete poured. But things are going well. And I think that's, and then we are also working on multi-pronged strategies to keep water on the golf course. And so thanks to partnership with Director Dupuy and his team and the team at the golf course, which has been tirelessly managing through this, there is a combination of issues. The pumps at the golf course are old and way beyond needing replacement. It has been on the ICIP list for a few years. And there are also some old pumps at the wastewater treatment plant for the effluent, but thanks to Director Dupuy, we've been working alternatives and we expect to start possibly irrigating again with effluent tomorrow. So we're on raw water and drinking water now, and have been for some time, some months, but we expect to switch back to chlorinated effluent, which will meet the E. coli standard tomorrow, which will be great. Because of the problems with the pumps at the golf course, they still do have to do extra watering. So they're closing one day a week for a couple of weeks to catch up. And then hopefully the rains will start. So good for the golf course, bad for the culvert. But so that is being worked on a daily basis and I think getting better by the minute. I think those are my two updates. Is there any other public works things that are falling apart? I think that's what we've got right now. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Director Wheeler. Appreciate it. Matters from the committee and committee members. Here's what I just got two items. Director Dupuy, there was a presentation I heard you're going to be putting together regarding the wastewater treatment plant, and if there's two items, if we can get and make sure we get included in the data. One is the source of the water for MRC and Marty Sanchez. I know you just mentioned it's going to be changing to effluent, but if we can get a timeline of, we switched from effluent to, drinking water to river water, a timeline of the different types of waters used. And then if possible, I guess an amount of water used in each of the different categories. And then the last one for Director Wheeler, if we can get an update on Franklin Miles. I've had a couple constituents reach out, just given it's looking pretty grim, and I want to make sure folks are aware of what's our plan with that park, because I just want public to know what's our plan.
I can answer that for you. Thank you. I should have included, that was another one that is, so the pump failed. It is an antiquated pump and parts are no longer available. So the staff had a month ago, ordered a custom part for the pump and it arrived last week and did not fit. And so at that point, because both of the park's water trucks are also beyond useful life, they're borrowing a water truck from the streets team and they're hand watering the park now using a borrowed water truck. And we're working on getting another part fabricated that hopefully will fit this time. One of the challenges we're having with all of these pump failures, and I don't know, maybe every city in the union has done this, but the pump manufacturers are super backed up and it takes weeks to get quotes and responsiveness. The lead time on new pumps is 16 weeks-ish. But staff is optimistic about this new configured part fitting, and I can get you an update. I'll be getting an update on that this week. We're hoping the part comes in this week and that we can get that fixed. But right now, we're hand watering.
Thank you, Director Ray. I really appreciate that update. Next item, matters from the chair. Chair Rivera didn't send along any messages to pass along, and I have nothing. With that, our next meeting is Monday, July 24th, 2023. Everybody have a good night. Meeting is adjourned.